Good afternoon, fellow Miami alum. My name is Allen Dengler. I'm the president of our Cleveland chapter up here in Northeast Ohio. Welcome to another edition of Redbrick Leadership Series, hopefully one of our last virtual Redbrick Leadership Series events. We are looking forward to in-person events when everything is safe and comfortable, and obviously we'll gauge that as we get closer to it. But as of right now, we are virtual, and I would like to welcome our featured guest, Mr. Mike Moloney. Mike is a graduate, obviously, of Miami University College of Arts and Sciences in 1992 with degrees in history and political science. He then went on to get his MBA at Case Western Reserve. Throughout his career, he has held various business consulting and M&A roles at EY, IBM, and PNC. Mike currently leads acquisitions and alliances for EY's People Advisory Services consulting practices in the Americas. Since graduating, he has remained very active within the Miami community, whether through various EY recruiting efforts on campus or as a member of the CAS Advisory Board. Mike is currently the president of the Miami Alumni Board of Directors. Mike, before I jump in there, what is CAS?
It is College of Arts and Sciences.
I should know that. I apologize.
That's all right.
There's acronyms for everything these days. So
Yeah.
Mike, how are you today? Thank you again for joining us and taking time. I know it's been it's a hectic time in general, but appreciate your time with us this afternoon. How are you?
I'm great. I appreciate the invitation, and I look forward to spending time with you and the chapter.
Yeah. It's a really unique experience having you on today because I have the local perspective, and we're doing such great things here in Cleveland. But to have a featured guest with that national scope, and to be fortunate enough that you're in our backyard, living here in Hudson, Ohio, it's a cool behind the scenes view that we get, and we'll give Cleveland a little bit more boost and a little exclusivity, to that sort of breakdown. But as we often do in our Redbrick Leadership Series, before we jump into the National Miami Alumni Board, why did you choose Miami? Let's flash back to the early '90s. Why did you choose Miami? How did you settle on your major, and what sort of activities were you involved in back in the day?
Yeah, so great lead-in question. So I think there are three reasons why I settled on Miami. I think number one, it's just an excellent school with a great reputation. And I remember around that time that book Public Ivies was coming out, or it had recently come out, and Miami was prominent. So that really informed a lot of my decision making. Secondly, I wanted a school with a strong liberal arts background and an opportunity to really get immersed in that. Clearly, Miami has that. And then the third was, like everyone else, the moment I stepped on campus, I really fell in love with the school. It's a beautiful campus. It's everything that you would think of when you think of going to college. Brick buildings, tree-lined walkways. It's just a gorgeous campus. So in all candidness, I did not visit any other school.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm from Western New York originally, but there's no school, at least on the public side of things in the state of New York, that really does match Miami's beauty. And it's the older I get, the more removed, the more college campuses you see, how unique it is that Miami has that every building is no more than 3 stories tall. It looks like a small school, but still has that university, umbrella and depth. It really has aged beautifully. Do you know the behind the scenes? Is that an ordinance that no buildings can be taller than 3 stories high?
I don't know if it's a written ordinance, but I do know that with every building that's designed, they clearly like to make sure that it, from a look and feel, fits into the existing architecture structure. I mean, that's pretty front and center when they're looking at any building.
Yeah, even the new football facility is like lined in brick, which is which is good, and the hockey arena too. I remember one story. It was my freshman year. We're walking into the rec center, and the new Goggin parking garage is off to our right. And the kid that lived across the hall from me is like, "Is that the library?" I'm like, "No." And it's just it's anecdote, the beauty the consistency that they push for. So you alluded a little bit in your bio. We'll take a little step forward after your graduation. Walk us through your work history and your career path up to this point.
Yeah, I think you hit the highlights. I mean, essentially, I've been in either consulting or banking the majority of my career. I went and got my MBA locally here at Case Western, which was actually a great program coming out of their MBA program. Full time was geared more toward liberal arts undergrads, so that enabled me to then enter into an opportunity at EY. I interned at EY between my first and second years at Weatherhead. Ultimately got an offer that turned into full-time, spent a few years there, also at IBM, and then went over to what was then National City, what subsequently became PNC, and then came back to EY, probably 12 or so years into our transactions practice, and have essentially been doing a lot of transaction M&A work for the duration of my second career at EY. And as you had alluded to right now, I run acquisition efforts for one of our subservice lines that's centered around people advisory consulting, which is essentially HR consulting.
Very nice. Very nice. All right. We made it up to the present. In your leadership role, on the work side of things, but then the leadership role on the board side of things, or the civic side, describe your leadership style. Is that different when you're at work versus on a board, whether it's Miami's board or any other board?
Yeah, I don't think it is different. To be very honest with you, I think regardless of setting, the leadership style should have a lot of common elements. I look at my leadership style probably falling into two buckets. I'd say attributes and then foundationally. The attributes would be decisiveness, clarity, empowerment, and accountability of those around me. And then I think the foundational elements would be empathy, mentoring those around me, and inclusiveness. And I feel very strongly, particularly going back to the mentoring, that we should always look to build people for their next opportunity. So if somebody's on my team and working, I always like to work with them with an eye toward what's the next role they can have, rather than assuming they want to stay in this position for the duration of their career. I think everyone wins in that regard, because in all candidness, people do want to progress and continue to look for their next opportunity. And if you bake that into your style, I think early on, if you're baking that into your style and to the norms, everyone gets to see the benefits of that. So they have increase in responsibility. You see the benefit of that as a team member. So I'd say, regardless of whether it's the work environment or whether it's civic or community boards that I've been involved in, I think that those are the foundational elements. And I would also say, just for those that know me, I'd say not taking myself too seriously, or having a bit of humor kind of embedded in some of the elements are also as important. I think you should be genuine and open, and I think humor allows us to do that as well.
Yeah, is that something that has progressed over time, and you're more thoughtful about it?
My style has progressed. I've been fortunate enough to work with some really great leaders that have really developed me. Not only from a skill standpoint, from a technical standpoint, but I'd say more importantly from a leadership standpoint, and either just through observing their style or frankly having development conversations with them as I look to build my leadership skill set. Those are the points that always seem to bubble to the surface. And the people that I've worked with, whether it's EY, at the bank, back here at EY again, or at IBM, I've always had a lot of respect for individuals that have carried themselves in the manner that I outlined previously, where they're just genuine. There's a decisiveness in their leadership style. I think empathy is a huge component that has been, frankly, underrated. It's probably coming more to the forefront right now. But your question, how has that progressed? It's progressed just by age, by experience, and frankly, just by development discussions as I've progressed from my career standpoint.
Yeah. Thank you for that's a very thorough answer. And I can see it early in my career now, looking at how my style has changed, and it's interesting to see perspectives how they will progress and kind of morphing those into your own style.
I'd say so anecdotally, I'd say the best piece of advice I ever got from the leadership style, and maybe it's not leadership, it's more behavioral, is the 24-hour rule. And I know we've all gotten those emails or been in meetings or gotten a phone message that has just kind of made your blood boil. Earlier in my career, I would probably respond a little too quickly to those, sometimes to my detriment. But somebody that I worked with who was a senior executive said, "Hey, I try to employ the 24-hour rule when there's something, whether it's a confrontational discussion or whether it's something that's a bit more meaty and you really need to think through it." He said, take 24 hours to think about it, because you ultimately will have a better, more thoughtful response in that regard. And that was probably one of the single best pieces of information that I got early in my career. And it's paid dividends, because you can see the benefits, and frankly, you can also see when folks don't take that 24-hour guide marker as well. Yeah,
that's interesting. I probably fall into that category sometimes too. You want to get things done, you want to get them off the plate, and sometimes emotion, or you just aren't as thoughtful with.
Yeah.
That's great perspective. All right, transitioning to the main event, the Miami Alumni Board. How did you get involved with the alumni board to begin with?
Yeah, so I had been involved with Miami in a couple of different capacities, as I think you had outlined, from both a recruiting standpoint, primarily through our firm, and then also had an opportunity to join one of the advisory boards, the College of Arts and Sciences advisory board, several years ago. And as my term was expiring, one of the individuals that had ultimately left the CAS advisory board to move over to the alumni board reached out and asked if I had an interest in joining the alumni board. So ultimately I did. I went through the application interview process and was fortunate enough to get an opportunity to serve on this board.
Sidebar, how the interview process, is it long? Was it what you expected?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty standard. So essentially, there are two components. There's a nominating component where you have to fill out a questionnaire and provide a lot of information in terms of, basic demographic information, but also how have you been involved with the university, et cetera, et cetera. And then as that progresses through the funnel, there's ultimately a phone interview that's conducted with representatives from the nominating committee. And it's an opportunity for those individuals to dig a bit more deeply into you and how you'd serve on the board and what you'd be drawn toward on the board, et cetera.
Interesting. Very interesting. Is that pretty standard, would you say, as far as the board process?
Yeah, I think it's pretty standard. It's funny that we're talking about this because we had a board meeting 2 weeks ago, and we're adjusting the nominating process a bit more to emphasize the self-nominating component. We really want to have individuals go through the process and have them complete the nomination form so they fully understand the obligations and the direction of the board, so that they're all in, right? I mean, if you're filling it out and you understand what the expectations are. There's a higher likelihood that they're engaged and from a go forward basis, everyone is on the same page. So we're really actually emphasizing that component to drive a bit more accountability.
It's a good transition to this next question. When you look at the mission of the board, what is the mission? What is the purpose?
Yeah. So I'd say our mission falls into two broad buckets. The first is to give advice and input to the alumni office and the university. And the second is to act as ambassadors for Miami and the university. And I want to go back to the advice component. We, in our capacity, we work very closely with the alumni organization professional staff who are excellent at what they do. And our role is to provide insight, guidance, and advice in terms of how they can further their strategic objectives. We are in no way a governance board. So I want to, that's a clear distinction that I think is important to know. We're there to help them move the ball downfield from their professional standpoint. Got
it. That's good behind the scenes perspective. When you look at board composition, how many people are on the board? What is it? What's the makeup?
Yeah, so we have 21 current members. Our bylaws indicate between 17 and 21. So we try to stay at the 2021 level. And our board composition is incredibly diverse by every marker, whether it's ethnicity, age, school, geographic location, professional background. We feel very strongly that, also in alignment with the university, that a more diverse board is something that is incredibly important for us. It brings different perspectives. And I think that as we look to form the board on a current and a go forward basis, quite frankly, that diversity along all of those categories is front and center in everything that we're doing.
It's so important. I mean, it's the different perspective avenues and looking at people that challenge I can only speak for myself, but challenge my thought process and allow you to think of something. I can go back to like my wife, right? It's just so important to have that component of it, because old time, you look 50 years ago, that element wasn't here, and we need as a board in Cleveland too to be mindful of that as we move to the future. And I think we have been very much so. So that's great. All right. So you look at, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit behind the scenes, what do meetings look like? What do you guys talk about?
Yeah.
Share a little bit of that.
So from a pre-COVID standpoint, our meetings were in Oxford. They're 2-day sessions. And what we typically do is it's probably a day and a half. So they're Fridays and Saturdays. We get in Thursday night. Friday is what I'll call more of an update in the first part of the meetings, where President Crawford would come in or other senior leaders from the university and provide update on strategic planning, important initiatives that are going forward. There to have a Q&A session, get some of our input as needed and as necessary. We'd also have typically other leaders of the university come in to provide perspective on some of the major items that are going forward or that they're planning to go forward with. And it cuts across all the disciplines, right? So it could be a dean, it could be somebody more aligned with the business office. We've also been fortunate that we have many times our meeting aligns with the board of trustees as well. So the president of the board of trustees would come in and also provide perspective. And they're great because you're getting the top of the house view of what's going on, the direction, strategic elements that the university is addressing. But we also have those discussions such that they're pretty open and candid. So they're probably the best of both worlds. Then in the afternoon, what we've done, one of my board president predecessors had come up with a really great idea of getting out onto campus and having some interaction component with the students or with the professor, seeing some displays at one of the colleges, it just so we can have a better feel of what's going on campus. And then the next day is typically more of a working day where we break out into different committees and work on initiatives that are in front of us. So it's kind of a nice mix to keep everyone engaged and really kind of on top of everything that's going on at the university.
Do you think those meetings will be in person moving forward with the new environment?
I think the short answer is yes. The longer answer is TBD in terms of when that will occur. We just had our spring meeting. Obviously, that was on Zoom. I would, fingers crossed, hope that in the fall we might move to a more hybrid. Maybe it's whatever that might mean. Maybe it's only one day we're down there. I have no idea, but I think as with all parts of society, we A, need to figure it out, and B, we also are kind of slowly getting back to some of the things that we've been accustomed to.
Yeah. What are some current initiatives of the board, and show us a little bit in the future of where you want things to go?
Yeah, so we're in an interesting point right now where we're taking a step back and recalibrating from an initiative or committee standpoint. So over the past couple meetings, we've actually gotten some input from our board, from the alumni professional staff and others that really landed us on 4 initiatives going forward. And these aren't just for the balance of this year. They'll hopefully be balance of this year and going forward as needed and as appropriate. So the first is creating lifelong alumni. The second is providing specific support to the Alumni Association. The third is promoting and aligning with university diversity and inclusiveness efforts. And then the fourth is, perhaps near and dear to your heart, driving more local chapter and geographic engagement.
We'll get to that in a little bit about the local side of things, but what are the crucial points of driving those initiatives home?
Yeah, so I think there are a couple things. Number one is all of those have to align with not only the university mission, but also the needs and the mission of the Alumni Association. And they do, so which is good news. It's a good starting point. I think the second, there has to be interest by all on the board and also within the university and alumni organization. And then the third, what we're trying to do is have a manageable set of actions underneath each of these buckets, right? Because I think all too often, we sometimes go down a path, not unique in this setting, but in all settings, where we get very insightful, intelligent, and engaged individuals and everyone comes up with great ideas. But at the end of the day, you look back and there's 20 things that we want to tackle. Our hope is that we want to kind of really prioritize and have 1, 2, 3 or so under each one of these, and have some tangible steps and also very realistic milestones that we can then point to that will guide those teams going forward.
Now, if we bring it into the local level, how do we strengthen the connection between the overall Alumni Association and the local chapters?
Yeah, I'd look for these efforts to hopefully be more of the connective tissue between the local and the university level alumni association, and I think it can take a number of different forms going forward. So I don't think we want a very strong prescriptive, like you must do X, Y, and Z. Having said that, the other side of the equation, I think we want to put in place just some guideposts and also share some best practices and other insights that we've seen, because we have a broader perspective across chapters. We might see that XYZ chapter has done something, it's really resonated. Why don't we make that an idea that other chapters can leverage going forward, right? So we don't want to be prescriptive by any stretch and say you have to do X, Y, and Z. What we want to do is just provide those opportunities where insights can be shared, and frankly, what works best at a local chapter can then be put into the drinking water, so you drive better engagement at the local level.
A big part of what we're trying to do is engage different experience levels, demographics. How do you keep people engaged in general? Is there a secret sauce?
Yeah, I think there's two things. One, you got to have topics that are of interest, right? So it's got to resonate. And I think number two, you've got to, in my opinion, kind of mix up whatever initiatives or programs are in place. So you try to find something that resonates with somebody over and over again, right? So, I mean, people have different tastes and different topics of interest. And so if you're able to put forward something that's not prescriptive, but has a little bit of variability, you're probably going to you're going to cast a wider net. And I think those two are probably foundational. And I just think, frankly, you're going to drive additional engagement. By doing those, it'll create a snowball effect, in my opinion.
Yeah, what we look for in as we plan things in the Cleveland area, we want to engage the young alumni, and we want to make sure that we're having your happy hours and your fun events. I want to see it as three sectors. So it's young alumni, family, and then your more experienced, career-oriented alumni base. And it was interesting perspective a couple of years ago, sitting next to a gentleman at a benefit event. And he was a Miami alumni and doing well, probably late 40s. I'd never met him before in my life, and straight up asked him, why are you not coming to Miami events? Because we'd love for people like you to start coming to Miami events. And he essentially explained how he has 4 kids and he has to be tactful with his time, and there's only so many hours in the day, and there's programs that he has to be exclusive with, or so okay, then it was our task to how do we build programs that attract that sort of experienced alumni, and that's what we're really working towards. And I think we're getting there. And one of them, soft plug for the golf outing, for example. This year we're going big and we're doing it at a private course for the first time, and it's people that want to play golf and are willing to spend a little bit more money. We're trying to engage with them. Yeah,
I think that's right. I think it's kind of the diversity of programs. I'd also say one of the things, and this is, I think, where the university and the Alumni Association can play, is I think we need to create alumni and alumni engagement before they even walk off campus, right? Because I think all too often we look to engage our alumni after they've already graduated and left Oxford. Whereas if we actually start doing that before they graduate and while they're still in Oxford, my guess is you'd have a stronger pull and create those alum that are more connected at the local level and also at the national level as well.
How do you do that? Because I look back on my time in Miami, and I'll be honest, it was a Tuesday night in November, and I'm flipping through what to watch on TV. And I'm like, oh, there's MAC football. I'll watch that. And it was Miami playing, Bowling Green, and it's going on less than a mile from my house, and I had no idea what was going on. And now I actively keep track of Miami football, and I'm way more engaged, obviously. But there was that disconnect at Miami. How do you build that passion?
Yeah, great question. The short answer is I don't know, because if you look at alumni that are strong supporters, there's something, athletics could be one thing that's a strong pull that brings people back. But I think Miami has a unique advantage in that almost everyone I've ever run into in any setting that reveals themselves as a Miami alum, they've loved it there, right? And so we already have a leg up on almost every other university in terms of our graduates, our current students love Miami and Oxford and the location, and I honestly think that if you start some of those engagement activities before they even graduate, that you'll build that affinity on a go forward basis, and you'll watch the MAC games on a Tuesday night because you're aware. But I think it just starts with getting connected into the alumni organization as a senior, or even as a junior, saying, hey, this is the alumni organization, this is what we do, this is how we can help you. You enjoyed your X number of years here. Part of the process then is staying connected to the university through the organization, and here are all the ways that you can do it.
We've had conversations of along those lines, and I've had several people that I would say are further ahead in thinking than I was when I was graduating college, but reaching out and engaging the local base when they're looking for job opportunities and doing it the right way, but building, whether it's a mentor program or something that we can encourage people, and this is on the local level too, and some Cleveland pride, because we want alumni to come to Cleveland. And there's obviously draws to Chicago, but there are a lot of Cleveland-based people that end up at Miami. How do we retain the talent to Northeast Ohio, and making it a selling point of both the city and the university, and creating pride in that? And that's just something we've thought through. We don't have an answer, and I don't necessarily know what kind of programs or things we'll lay out, but it's certainly an interesting discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I think Miami alum are incredibly loyal as well to the university, and also to graduates and current students. And I think leveraging the alumni network, and I know that the Alumni Association has done a good job of trying to connect the dots from a professional standpoint. Leveraging the Alumni Association in terms of job opportunities or other career opportunities, to me, it's a no-brainer, right? I mean, you went to Miami, you see something that is of interest, that person has gone to Miami, there's already an immediate connection. I mean, the first 10 minutes of your discussion, you're going to talk about, bagel and deli and whatever, right? I mean, it just opens up the conversation right out of the gates, right? So yeah. I think it's a natural, in my opinion.
Sure. Speaking of young alumni, any advice for young alumni, whether they don't have to be Miami specific, but just a person coming out and entering the workforce?
Yeah, I'd say a couple things. Number one, don't lose your intellectual curiosity. Number two, always better yourself in the professional and personal setting, right? So I know we get kind of lost in the day-to-day grind of our work, but always try to look at the bigger picture and have a plan in terms of where you want to go, how do you get there, and I'd also say number three, and this is probably a little bit trite, but appreciate each day. I mean, it's just, we all have our ups and downs, peaks and valleys in our lives each day, but if you take a step back, just appreciate every day. I mean, I think if you have those three, along with, treat folks the way you'd want to be treated, as kind of that current thread across, you'll be fine, right? I mean, everything else will fall into place in terms of the way you approach your professional career, and approaching things with integrity and great decision making. If you have those couple of points up top and that last one on the bottom, I don't think you have any worries.
Yeah, you talked about one of your leadership styles as being genuine. You can tell that answer is very genuine. And it's very detailed, and I appreciate it. I still see myself as a young alumni, so I always try to take what I can get from those conversations. When you look at someone trying to join a board, doesn't have to be the alumni board in general. Do you have any advice for that person?
Yeah, I think number one is obviously stating a must-have is have interest in whatever that board's aligned to. Number two, I'd say develop a personal relationship with somebody on the board, and find out, do your due diligence prior. Is this something that you'd be of interest in joining? What are the expectations? What's the mission of the board? Where do they want to head? I think if you line up those things, you'll actually get the answer of whether or not you would want to be part of that board rather than the other way around. Because I actually think it's more important for the individual to make the decision of whether they would want to be part of a board rather than the board making the decision of whether an individual wants to be on the board. Because if you don't have engaged and committed board members, you're going to have a very difficult time moving the dial on whatever initiatives that you want to progress.
Sure. Last, I know we have a few questions on the outside, but before we transition that, one last question on the board side of things. What do you want people to know about the board? If you could summarize it something?
Yeah, I'd say two things. That the board is a resource that is there to help each alum in various capacities. That we are trying to do the mission of the university and the alumni association, and really try and gap the bridge between university level and local level. And I would say the second thing, and this isn't necessarily the mission of the board or anything, but our alumni association, I think, is great. I'm amazed each time we have a board meeting and they run through all the accomplishments that they've been able to put across the finish line over that prior year or prior 6 months. It's an excellent resource. I would encourage everyone to utilize that, and frankly, I'd also encourage everyone to give back to the university in any capacity that they can, whether it's time, whether it's capital, however they can, because you feel more committed, and ultimately, it's a great way to have some investment, quote unquote, in the mission of the university going forward.
Yeah. We do have some questions that came through the pipeline, so I'm going to address these. Thank you for sending them in, and I appreciate the participation from the group. Number one, what drove your decision to stay engaged with Miami as you have?
Yeah, I honestly loved Miami while I was there. The 4 years were great, and it's always had a special place in my heart, and I've just never been able to really kind of walk away from the university. I don't know. I mean, it was a great experience. I learned a ton. I had some great professors. I made some great friends. I have a daughter who's a senior right now. I have twins that will be entering Miami. We're kind of a Miami family through and through.
Are you a merger?
We are not. Yeah.
So close.
I'm still trying to convince my wife to maybe take a grad level class or two, right?
That's spoken like a true board member.
Right.
How can alumni help to spread the MUAA board mission in our own cities? I know we talked about it a little bit, but is there anything else to really spread that out?
Yeah, I think the first would be actively engaged in the local chapter. I think that's probably the best way that alum can spread the Miami mission. And I think the second way is staying connected and up to date and aware of what the broader university mission is as it relates to alumni organization and frankly Miami in general. But I think the no-brainer is the local level.
Nice. Thank you for the plug. Appreciate it. Between your career, family, and serving on boards, how do you spend your free time and relax? And do you have free time to relax?
Yeah, I think you always have to prioritize free time and family. I mean, we're all incredibly busy. We all have demanding professions, but if you don't prioritize family, in my opinion, and other ways to just kind of decompress, it's not going to work out in the long run. I love spending time with family, getting outside, being active, sports, etc. So yeah, I mean, pretty typical, non-exciting stuff.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Browns, Cleveland, sports.
Yeah, sports, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm a Bills fan.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, so I hide this one,
right?
So people don't think I'm over the top. But
okay, all right.
Yeah, a good time to be both Browns and Bills fans, and I'm impressed with the Indians. I don't know if they can hang on to it, but they're pushing for first in the Central.
Yeah.
It's impossible to watch the games because I don't have AT&T, which is a whole different side of it. Anyway, I digress. I know you said you're at 21 on the board. Are you looking to add more members to the board, and kind of what is that term like?
Yeah, so we look to add each year because we've got a roll off schedule. So this year we're looking to add quite a number. I don't have the number. I think 9 roll off this year. So there are a number of open slots that will definitely be coming up here. And I will tell you, we're about to initiate the awareness campaign around those open slots. So be on the lookout. Small plug for the Alumni Association and the communications they send out. They'll have more information on that, but that should be coming out in June.
Nice, very nice. I was talking with someone in the area that is part of a local university's big board, and I think they have 55 members, and their term there's no limit. So it like I don't know how that's scaled or how that's possible.
Yeah, we have a 3-year term.
Yeah, they seem to be struggling through it. So it's good that you guys have addressed that and aren't in that same situation. What is the best advice you can give a Miami student looking to serve in a leadership position? So I guess that's similar to the new grad, but I guess looking forward in their career.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, not too much different than what I said earlier in terms of, just approaching things with intellectual curiosity, a genuineness, finding something that's of interest to you, and also, as part of that organization, building personal connections with individuals that are already part of that organization. Life is about human connection, right? And the more human connections you make, probably the better off you'll be in a whole host of levels, to include finding leadership positions.
Sure. Let's see. Favorite part of serving on the MUAA board? Has it helped you feel more connected to Miami?
Yes, to number 2, it definitely has. Although paying tuition also makes me feel connected as well. Favorite part, I think it's twofold. I think number 1, I really enjoy my interaction with the board itself. We have some incredibly wonderful people on the board, very, very diverse, and it's just great to interact with them. And the staff as well. But the board, I'm just struck by how accomplished they are. I'm humbled that I was asked to be president, because these are some really accomplished individuals. So that's actually one of my most favorite things. We have great conversation. They're open conversations. They're very intellectually honest. And I also, I mean, as you guys can attest to, I love getting back to Oxford. I mean, it's great to be back there a couple times every year.
That is a perfect transition into our quick hitters, which will also, I know there's a few more questions on here, but we'll hit them on the quick hitter side. So number one, favorite bar and restaurant from two parts, I guess bar or restaurant, from college, in Oxford, and today.
Okay. Yeah. So it's no longer there so we used to go to Balcony quite a lot. So that was my favorite.
You describe it? I'm not familiar. Where was it?
So it is, do you know where the bookstore is right now uptown next to the Fiji House?
Yes.
Yeah. So that structure, the old Balcony and Ozzy's was a bar on the bottom, is no longer there. And they built that new structure is now a bookstore.
Yeah, I did find my way to the bookstore every once in a while, and the library.
Okay.
So I know what that is too. But yes. Yeah. What about today? When you go back, what do you like?
When I go back to Oxford, what's my favorite restaurant? Paisanos, the Italian place.
Oh, okay.
I'd never been there before, and we actually have board meetings.
It's like a house, isn't it? Correct.
It is. Yeah. It's I mean, it's great. So we usually have a dinner the night before our board meetings, and more times than not, it's there. And I didn't know it was there. I mean, it's great. I love it.
Yeah, nice plug. Okay, favorite bagel at Bagel and Deli?
The Howard Bagel, named after my friend Howard Bobrow. So plug to Howard. Doubt if he's listening, but it's my favorite.
Yeah, can you build it for us?
I can't. I don't even know what's in it. It's like, I think it's turkey. I don't even know, something. It's good. I mean, you can't go wrong with any of those bagels.
Yeah, just don't ask questions and just
absolutely.
It tastes good. That's all that matters.
Yeah. You just gotta go with it, right?
What is your favorite spot on campus? We talked about uptown. What about on campus? Whether it doesn't have to be. It can be architectural if you like the look of a building, or just enjoy spending
time. Boy, I tell you, that's probably the toughest question that you've asked.
Why not?
Because every place on campus is great. Probably the formal gardens. I mean, it's just kind of a neat place. Or I'd say Upham Arch, just as you kind of look across and you can look into Upham Arch. I think those are probably the two most favorite because they're iconic.
Are the gardens? Is that by Markham?
It is. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That little area, like the gardens, but then the surrounding area around it, it's really nice. It's kind of peaceful.
Sure. Non-Miami or Cleveland question, but this is new to the repertoire. Favorite band.
I'd have to say I'd say a U2, kind of my generation, right?
Sure. And then do you remember what your first album was?
From U2?
Just in general.
Oh, God, my first album. I think it was something from Dire Straits, and I think it was a cassette that I got at Record Revolution on Coventry.
I like it. That's my neighborhood.
Either that or it was a Styx or Boston 8-track that my cousin gave me in probably 1977, which I didn't even have an 8-track player, so I don't know how that was going to work.
What do you enjoy most about Cleveland?
Northeast Ohio. Yeah, look, I've traveled a lot around the country and around the world, and I will tell you, each time the plane is coming back, I love this place more and more. It's unique in terms of the diversity. I love the seasonal change. I love, frankly, the affordability. I mean, this is a great place. You've got what I would consider big city attributes, like the sports, like the art museum, the orchestra, the health care facilities, the hospitals, in what I would call kind of very affordable Midwest setting. And the seasons change. I love it. Like, yeah, January, February can get a little rough, but I love this area, and the more I travel, the more I like it. And I'll tell you, there's another thing I like about Cleveland. It feels like a small town. I mean, you talk to anybody about anything, and within like 5 minutes, you're going to connect the dots in terms of, oh, you grew up over here. Well, do you know such and such? And there's a uniqueness to Cleveland. Whenever somebody asks, where'd you go to school, they don't mean college, they mean high school, right? And there's this element that just starts to connect everybody. So I love this place.
Yeah. I've been here for 7 years now, and it goes by fast. And yeah, we've loved it. We've just bought a house, so yeah, we grew, not being a native Clevelander, but growing to love the city more and more over time.
Yep.
Speaking of seasons, last question: favorite Cleveland summer activity?
Summer activity. I love getting.
I'm trying to, I barely see out my window, but
I love getting out on the trails, and either hiking or biking. I live out in Hudson, as you had mentioned, by the national park, and we go to the towpath all the time. To me, it's one of the best kept secrets.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the winking lizard in Peninsula.
Yes, yeah, I was just there last week.
Yeah, the train whistle on the patio can be a lot, but besides that, it is awesome.
Right.
So, perfect, Mike. That's all the questions I have for you. Do you have any questions for me? I
don't. I just, as I said, I appreciate you giving me the invite, and I hope everyone felt that this was time well spent.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mike. I really appreciate it. Final, I guess we'll give a plug to future events. If you have any questions on anything, you can reach out to us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. We would love an additional follow, and that's the best place to get information outside of the Miami website. Also, look for upcoming events. We are in the final stages again of hopefully having in-person events this summer that are going to be safe for everybody and social distance and within the parameters of the state of Ohio. And then finally, the golf outing, August 9th. It's a Monday. We're doing it at Kirtland Country Club. It's a noon shotgun start. Looking for participants, looking for sponsors. So if you're interested in participating, reach out, and we'll continue to feature that on our social media sites and through the emails. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, and hope to see you guys soon.